Oh yeah, look at that Mega Chad King Kong design. I love it.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I'm Jared Fearing,
I'm a lifelong Godzilla fan and a big fan of Halloween.
and nothing says Halloween like monster movies.
So this year, for the month of October,
We're going to review every single Godzilla movie, from Gojira all the way to Godzilla and Kong the New Empire.
so join me this month for a new video every single day and see if I go insane in the process. Let's get to it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to day 3 of reviewing all the Godzilla movies throughout the month of October. I'm not insane yet, so let's go. In 1962, King Kong fought Godzilla, and even by today's standards, it was one of the most profitable Japanese films of all time. King Kong vs. Godzilla was building on the momentum that they made in Godzilla Raids Again, with Godzilla facing off against another creature, this time the famous American King Kong. It's loosely connected to Godzilla Raids Again in that Godzilla busts out of an iceberg where we last saw him being trapped in Godzilla Raids Again. But again, the continuity between these movies seems to change quite a bit, and it's really kind of hard to decide if you want it to be a continuation or each thing is kind of a new iteration up to a point. In the future films, they start doing some callbacks and you see a little bit of flashbacks from other movies, and at that point I guess it's safe to assume that they are connected. But if we're going straight from Godzilla Raids Again, then the main Godzilla of the Showa era is really the second Godzilla, and I don't know, there's just something kind of weird about that. King Kong vs. Godzilla follows a pharmaceutical company that wants to go to Faroe Island to kidnap King Kong to increase the company's visibility for some reason. I mean, if a drug company had a giant monster as their mascot, would I be more likely to use Ozempic or something like that? Probably not, but what do I know? Maybe I would, I guess. Sure, whatever, it was the 60s. The head of the pharmaceutical company is a guy that's pretty comedic and actually has some good funny moments, named Mr. Taco, spelled T-A-K-O. And, you know, you hear taco and you might think about the Mexican dish, but really T-A-K-O, taco, is the Japanese word for octopus. So really it's Mr. Octopus. King Kong vs. Godzilla has a lot more comedy than we had seen previously. Godzilla Raids Again has a lot of like silliness, but it's not explicitly comedy. It's just kind of like weird storytelling. There are moments in King Kong vs. Godzilla that are meant to be comedic shticks, and to be honest, it's pretty funny. There's a few moments in it that actually like make me laugh. And that's kind of rare for the Godzilla series. There's not a lot of laugh out loud humor, which is fine because that's not really what they're going for anyways. There's definitely some scenes that are inappropriate and kind of got away with it due to the time that it was made. Like, for example, them buying off the islanders with cigarettes and giving one to one of the children and just saying, "Don't smoke it around your mom." King Kong vs. Godzilla also introduces a design of Godzilla that I'm going to call Frog Godzilla. He looks very froggy, a lot more of a reptilian head, and it's fine. This is kind of the only film that we see him looking like this. This is also the only time in the original era of the Godzilla films that we see King Kong. And he's got such a derpy, bulky design. I absolutely love it. I love the Japanese King Kong. It's such a silly looking thing, and it just works. It fits right in that era, and it's a very different take than the 1933 King Kong. They also give King Kong some weird kind of superpowers, like he's powered by electricity, and he gets electricity in his fingertips, and it's very odd, but like I like it. It's super cool. He has a great fight with Godzilla. They use a lot of like pro wrestling and sumo inspiration, which is again kind of silly, but it makes it awesome at the same time. And of course there's the famous scene of King Kong stuffing trees down Godzilla's throat. The interesting thing about King Kong vs. Godzilla from 1962 is that it actually got inspired by a pitch from Willis O'Brien, who was the animator of the original King Kong in 1933. His career had kind of hit a lull, and he wanted to get another King Kong movie going. And so the original pitch was King Kong versus Frankenstein, and Frankenstein in that context was going to be kind of a mishmash of like African animals. But he was friends with a producer connected to Toho, and they took the idea to Toho and they said, lose the Frankenstein, let's make it Godzilla. And that's how King Kong vs. Godzilla came to fruition, which is pretty cool because it does have the involvement of the original animator of the 1933 King Kong. The American version is not perfect. They overuse the score from Creature from the Black Lagoon, actually, and they have it play several times during the movie, whereas the Japanese version actually has an original score that goes with it. So that's one of the ways that the American one is different and in a way worse. King Kong and Godzilla fight on Mount Fuji, which is sweet. I've climbed that mountain. And this movie was so popular in both the US and Japan that this actually started kind of the Godzilla boom, where after a year's hiatus, they started having a Godzilla movie almost every single year until 1975. That's when it was in the height of its popularity. The tokusatsu franchises were starting to take off, like Ultraman, Kamen Rider in the 70s, and all of this stuff just helped kind of perpetuate that big monsters was a staple of Japan and everybody loved it. After the more lighthearted King Kong vs. Godzilla, they went back to Godzilla being more of a villain. And up next is Mothra vs. Godzilla. And we see Godzilla return as much more of a villain and the scariest design in the Showa era. For King Kong vs. Godzilla, I highly recommend this one. It's so silly but fun, and intentionally silly, not because of bad writing. They had an idea that they wanted to go for, and I feel like they nailed it. So I actually really love this movie. Highly recommend it. Lots of fun. Just be aware that it is very silly. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and comment below and let me know what you think about the original Godzilla vs. King Kong. Sorry, King Kong vs. Godzilla. Oftentimes in the original Showa era movies, Godzilla was the second featured monster in the title. Go figure. I'll see you next time for Mothra vs. Godzilla.